You have found Authentic Business Adventures, a business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kademan, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and helpful coach to small business owners across the country. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Kevin Snow, the founder and CEO of Time on Target. The interesting thing about Kevin, what he's got going on is it's essentially sales help. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, sales, marketing, automation, sales process, all that fun stuff.
Perfect. I'm excited to talk to you about this because it's funny. I was just talking with a client of mine yesterday, and we were talking about sales and all this kind of stuff. She has a retail, health thing. But in the end, she was very afraid to do any sales shy of just waiting for people to walk through her door.
Oh,
so this is very timely. So let's get started and just, you could tell people what is Time on Target.
Sure. So Time on Target's my company. We actually started it back in 2010.
Oh, wow.
But the funny thing is when I started it was a speaking and training company. I was going around training different franchise owners how to launch new chapters for the networking organization I was a member of. And I was then speaking at conferences about sales and networking, and businesses were hiring me to come teach their employees how to network more effectively. And it was really cool. But then I deployed. And when I came back, I didn't have any speaking gigs, and I didn't have anything in my pipeline. So I was like, oh crap. Yeah, that's like, oh, bad. So I basically had discovered a big business flaw for my model, and that was that it couldn't survive me being gone. So we did this huge shift from speaking as a product to actually going out and helping companies launch sales teams. So we go into a lot of tech firms that were at a growth stage. You know, they just hit their first growth plateau. And now they're looking at, all right, so how do we take that next step? How do we scale further? And usually for them, that was, all right, so how do we do better at sales? So we went in and we helped them figure out, all right, so what's your job description actually look like? What do you want them to do? Who are you trying to hire? Here's how you hire salespeople. So we teach them that, help them put on the onboarding process in place, training, mapping the sales process, teach them how to manage salespeople. After 6 or 9 months of this process, they had a full sales team, and they were positioned to actually be able to run a program. And they basically had their playbook, which was a lot of fun. It allowed me to really define how I wanted sales and how I thought sales should work, and learn a bunch of new stuff. And then I got a ton of exposure into other business models and stuff. So it was really cool. I really loved it. But I started finding things I didn't like. So we kept niching down for what we did as a business. You know, for example, hiring salespeople, if you're going to hire 2 or 3 at a time, that's a lot of initial interviews. And as an introvert, at the end of the week that we were doing interviews, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to go hide in my bedroom, turn all the lights off, and recover. Because I was spent. It sucked, all that interaction just literally sucked the energy out of me. But I also learned I couldn't have more than one client going, because that one client would, I had to spend so much time with the interviews and working with them going through that process. I couldn't support the other people effectively. So we started getting rid of things like that, and training development and coaching on how to manage salespeople. And it kept getting down to where we're at today, where it's really focused on helping people understand how to actually sell their stuff and how their clients make purchasing decisions, and then integrating technology in so it's seamless and it's a good experience for their clients, but it's also easy for them to use as a business owner, or if they actually have a sales team, for their sales team to utilize and get value from as well. And that's usually a big part that's missing. And that's where we're at today.
Nice. How did you get in the sales game initially?
So that's another fun story, because I'm actually supposed to be a high school agriculture teacher.
Well, that's close.
Yeah, totally related field. I'm supposed to be at high schools teaching ag and coaching wrestling. So after college, I was interviewing for a multitude of jobs. I was interviewing for teaching jobs, but then I was also interviewing for other non-teaching gigs. And I got offered 2 jobs. One of them was a teaching job, which would have been $19,000 a year, plus the amount for coaching. And then I got offered this hybrid sales account management position with a telecom company that's base was 39,000. And plus then there was bonuses for commission for upselling and all that type of stuff. I'm like, I got a car to pay for, school loan start in 6 months. Hi, mom, I'm moving to Minnesota. So I took the sales job, and I had done like sales jobs during college, during the summer and stuff. I had sold Kirby vacuum cleaners, Cutco cutlery, all those.
Wow. Checking
all
those boxes.
Yeah, Definitely. I'd done telemarketing. So I had done some sales stuff. So I went in there, and that was my first real job after college, was sales for a telecom company.
Wow. And was that cold calling or?
No, that was all. It was account management. So I was given a base. I was working with Fortune 500 accounts out of downtown Minneapolis. And so I had a book of accounts that I was supporting, and then upselling into and migrating from one billing platform onto the new one, and doing all kinds of contract work and support work. So
all right.
it was a hybrid sales job. I don't think if it was a straight go sell stuff, I probably would have taken it at that time. So.
Gotcha. All right. So why were you even looking for jobs outside of the whole egg teacher thing? Did you
it was just options for, teaching back then. Teaching paid even less than it does now. So there was, I had an understanding at that point that, hey, I need to pay bills.
Right.
And, do I necessarily want a job that I need to have another job on top of to make sure I can pay for stuff and pay off the school loans and all that stuff I had going on. So it was literally just, I wanted to make sure I found something and wasn't one of those unemployed students after the summer I graduated.
Right.
So
all right. Well,
yeah,
that's cool.
I had no real plans to move out of the state and move to Minnesota, and but then I got the offer, and it was a cool company, and the boss that I interviewed with seemed really cool, and so I was like, let's try. I can always move back if it doesn't work. So
yeah, right. So what made you, I guess, at what point did you leave that to start your own gig, or what was the sequence of events that happened there?
Yeah, so I was with them. I got fired less than a year later because I was just horrible, which was fine. I learned a ton, and I learned a lot of stuff about me. At the time, I didn't realize I was learning it, but it allowed me to move from that position. And then I actually got a true sales position with Nextel, the walkie-talkie phone people. Love them. Yep. Push to talk. It was really cool. And I started out really kind of bumpy there too. But then I figured out something for how I needed to sell, because I am an introvert. I couldn't do all the standard sales techniques because it came out really wrong. When I said it didn't come across as, smooth and polished when all the extroverts said it. It came out just like slimy and sleazy when an introvert says it for whatever reason.
The presumptive close, right? You want
presumptive close, takeaway. We're gonna do the Ben Franklin close, let's draw a line down the middle of the sheet and write out pros and cons and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. But I discovered then that my sales superpower was the ability to listen, ask questions. And as a high C, that introvert, we're all about detail. And we want to know why things work and how things work and all the stuff. We're that person that reads the 5-page email to get to all the stuff when really what we needed was at the bottom. We'll read it all. But I discovered that was my superpower because I would go into these businesses and I got rid of the pitch deck and I started asking questions and started really learning about what was going on in their business and the issues they were having that was keeping them up at night and that they really wanted to change, and the impact that changing those things would have. That was the big part when I started finding out the impact questions and how it would actually change their lives. That then when I came back and said, all right, so here's what we can actually do. I stopped selling on the, here's this cool walkie-talkie thing, and we can save you $50 a month and all that stuff that other cellular people were doing. And I was really coming in saying, hey, what if we can actually use the technology to allow your company, for each of your drivers out on the road, to do one additional stop a day? Oh. What if we can decrease the drive time between stops? What if we can do these things with it? And they're like, oh, that would be huge. That would save us thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Like, awesome. Well, let's talk about how we do that. And now I started presenting in these solutions. Nextel at the time had the walkie-talkie thing, but they also had really good data, and they were the initial people to come out with data apps. So they had the GPS apps that had business applications. They had dispatching apps. They had all kinds of these really cool things that you could run on their phones. So I started coming into them with these solutions like, all right, let's do this thing with GPS, where you can now actually, your dispatchers can actually see where everyone's at, and they can dispatch the right driver to do the pickup, as opposed to just, hey, Bob, can you go do this one? Yeah, I'm on the other side of the town, but I'll drive an hour to get from Minneapolis to St. Paul. Sure. They could actually pick the person that was right down the road. So they started saving all this money and actually generating more revenue. And they were paying my company 3 times as much for their monthly service.
Wow.
And they didn't care.
Because they're saving and making so much
money.
Yeah,
exactly. They're increased revenue and they'd save cost.
All right.
And so they ended up with, they buy the normal voice plan, they need the data plan, and then they need the subscription for the app. So, but if each driver was, generating, an additional $100 to $500 to $1,000 a day in revenue, they were okay with that because it was now an investment and it wasn't just an expense.
Yeah.
And it was because I started asking questions and listening and figuring out what was going on in their world. And that changed how I did sales for the rest of my career.
Nice. And so your boss had to be pretty ecstatic about that.
Yeah, I went from, happy to make quota to top 5% in the entire company countrywide. So,
wow. All right.
Yeah. No, definitely not. I was number 1 in the market, top 5% throughout the country. And it was because I was selling solutions, and marketing got mad at me because I wouldn't ever call any of their leads. I'm like, because you're giving me a company that needs 2 phones.
Oh,
I'm like, I need companies. My target, I needed a company that was doing 10 or more phones and had people that were remote and needed to go do stuff where we can come in with a solution. I wasn't ever going to compete on price because that was all the hard closing stuff that you learned from Zig Ziglar and Tom Hoskins and all those people. That wasn't me. I need to be able to sell solutions. I need to be able to go in and help them figure out, all right, so here's what's bugging you. Here's what's causing you to not sleep and impacting your quality of life. Here's how we fix it. Let's do this. And, that was the key thing for me.
Yeah. It's interesting. The 2 phone versus 10 phone lead, I guess, is because in our business with the smaller clients, they're doing like the 2 or sometimes even less employees.
Yeah.
They're doing so much stuff that they a lot of times only look at price because they're so busy that they don't know what else to look at. And they don't want to take the time to learn what to look at. So it's tough closing them. And in the end, when you do, they're such a tiny customer that, it's good that you help them, all that jazz, but sometimes it can be somewhat of a pain.
Yeah.
We start getting into the 5, 10, where they have a little bit of bandwidth because maybe they have some management involved. And that was take the time to learn so that they can scale.
Yeah. Yeah, that was totally it. Your small businesses totally would, I'm not opposed to someone buying stuff from me, but the things I was selling, while it could have helped them, they weren't at a position to be able to actually take advantage of it and have it make an impact in them. It would have complicated their life more.
Right.
Because they would have been like, oh, we have bandwidth, so we brought on more clients, and now we're completely overrun. Whereas these companies already had put processes in place to support multiple clients. And now we're giving them a way to stress proven processes to make them better. And that's something that we always teach. When I now do coaching and working with businesses that are trying to scale, that's one of the things, like, all right, build a process, document it, get it running, and now break it. Stress the process, figure out, bring on someone that you don't think you're necessarily ready to work with, but bring them on so you can figure out where your process can't scale and where it's going to break. So then you can figure out how to fix it. If you're not breaking things in your business, you're not moving forward.
Right.
And that's the same way with sales. If you're not looking at your processes and figuring out, all right, how do I do it better? How do I now sell to this next level client, and figuring out where your process doesn't work, you're going to get stuck in that, same daily over and over type of grind. And you're never going to evolve. You're never going to get to that next level where you want to be.
Yeah, you'll end up plateauing. Systematize everything is the big rule that we have. And it's huge.
Yeah, it has to. And because that allows you then to test. If you're running a consistent system, and that's a big thing for me with sales and marketing automation, when we help a company automate their sales process or we put in automated steps, they have to have a process that they're running.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, anything that we do that's automated is going to end up either not is going to be out of sync, or they're going to not use it at all because they skipped over steps and then things didn't move through the automation process. So they have to have a process that they understand and follow and are confident in, so that we can then, all right, so how do we make it better? Let's do this and test it and see if we get increased click-through rates, increased closing rates based on this, all that type of stuff. But it's because there's a process that we can test against. There's a baseline.
Yeah, I remember reading the Checklist Manifesto that talked about that with surgeons and with pilots and all that jazz.
Yeah, there's a reason that, I'm in the military, so we have checklists for everything. There is a process for clearing your weapon when there's a jam. All right. There is a process for everything, and you learn it. But even when we go out and go into our vehicles for at the beginning of the day, there is a checklist we have to go through to our PCCs and PCIs, and to make sure that everything's working and we're not missing things. We don't get out in the middle of a mission, in the middle of the road, in a potentially hostile area, and like, oh crap, we ran out of gas. now you have a whole, because you didn't check the gas tank as one of your PCCs and PCIs. So we literally give our privates, hey, here's a checklist. Do all these things, and then the leaders go in and they spot check and make sure, yep, you're good. But it's to teach a process, and even once they know the process, they still use the checklist. Mm-hmm. It's just like pilots. They still use their checklist, even though they've been doing it for years. It's because they don't want to miss a step that's going to screw everything up.
Yeah, it could be a big, huge deal.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't check the airlines. We're stuck going in a circle now because it's stuck up. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that go wrong if you forget one step in your process.
Yeah, I want to run down this road just really quickly before we delve into the more specifically what you got going on. I have found with my employees with calls on call and with other employees within different businesses, clients, or just people I know, a lot of times there's some pushback or there's some apprehension from employees about following a checklist. They're feeling like, I know what I'm doing. I've done this for decades. What's the big deal? Why do I need to go through this checklist? So can you tell me how, when you're hired by a company to essentially implement this automation, that you get the employees to buy in?
So when we're developing stuff for a client and they have an existing sales team, it's easy when it's the boss that we're trying to fix stuff for and free up his life and make his world easier. He's already bought into this whole idea. But when there's a sales team that have been doing stuff without a lot of structure to it, we usually go in first, and we meet with all of them, and we get to go through the bull session with them where they say everything that's wrong that they wish was better. And we'll pick out some easy wins. And a lot of times it's content based and giving them some cool content. So now they're already excited because they got some cool stuff from us. We listened to them and we gave them stuff back that they've been asking for. So, it's not necessarily part of our process, but it's like, it's like when you visit someone's house, you bring a bottle of wine. I'm visiting their house. I'm bringing you cool content to give your clients. So they're now excited. But then we involve them actually in the development process. So when we're building out whatever the checklist is or the sales process and integrating in the automation, CRM stuff, salespeople are involved the entire development process. Every step of the way, there's some sales feedback and involvement, and they're looking at stuff and talking about it to us so that we're able to actually, they're like, they're listening to us. This is something that we help develop. The number one reason CRM integrations and implementations fail is because someone in some office somewhere that salespeople have never seen before has just randomly picked a system and built a process and pushed it out.
Oh,
and those salespeople are like, well, you don't even understand what we do. You didn't talk to us about how it works. This actually doesn't match how we sell. This is adding steps in. You're making it more complicated. And they're like, screw this. I'm going to use my spreadsheet because it works. And that's why there's such, either no implementation or it's a really long process. If the salespeople are involved right away and they're giving feedback and saying, well, here's how we do, here's how we do it. And I say, well, awesome. What if we did this? And we have that dialogue as I'm building stuff and mapping things and getting feedback from clients and sharing that with them. Now when we have that finished problem, they're excited about it because they helped build it.
All right.
And it's something that they already believe in because they were involved.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
they've been listened to. And then it's so much easier. And then it's really selling the ownership on, hey, here's why you need to do it this way. And watch what happens and let them do the thing. Stop doing these things. We're doing this stuff. But getting them involved is the key.
Gotcha.
If you have someone that touches the process, they need to they need to feel like they were heard. So we even go talk to, the receptionist who was answering the phones and get feedback. All right, so what are clients calling you about? What are they saying? How are they getting through? What are their issues? What are you having to do? And so then we integrate, all right, so here's how you're doing handoffs and here's how that's going to flow. Accounting, we talk to them because that's, they talk to accounting. Accounting doesn't realize they're in sales. Every time you talk to a client, you are selling for your business. And you being the rude accountant, that's just, you need to give me money. Well, no, that's not how it's going to be. You need to do it this way. They don't understand that as soon as they hung up, that client then calls their salesperson and yells at the salesperson.
Right.
So
everyone's in sales. Yeah,
exactly. So getting everyone involved and understanding, hey, here's what happens when you do these things. And here's how it ties into this overall process is huge for those companies that are trying to scale. Because it tends to be a big culture shift for them in the sales world, and getting everyone to understand it's like, oh, I impact the company and I impact the other people's world when I'm like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's big for a lot of departments who have never been like, oh, I'm not in sales. My mom said that all the time. She ran a credit card division for a bank.
Okay.
They were talking to clients all the time. And it was the division she worked for did the ones where you had to have a deposit in. So if you had $300 with them, then you would have a $300 credit line.
Gotcha. Okay.
Type thing. It was for people to repair their credit. So these are people who were not always in the best financial straits where they could just say, oh, well, here's $1,500. So I explained to her at one point, it's like, Mom, you and all your people who are talking to these clients are in sales. If they have a bad experience with your card, what's stopping them from going to another card that does the same thing? Mm-hmm. And now they're taking the money out of your bank. You're having that impact. And she's like, well, I never thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, it's a sale. You guys are in sales, even though you're doing support. Mm-hmm. If they get mad at you because you're not treating them like you're trying to earn their business, they're going to leave.
Right.
So it's funny. My mom would always say, I don't know how you can do sales. I'm like, really? We live on a farm. You all are doing sales all the time. I'm like, you live check to check more than I do. I at least have a base salary coming in when I was working for a company. So you're like, whatever you sell is what you make. So don't talk to me about living check to check.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it took me the longest time to figure that out too. It's like, oh, they actually have a business. This isn't just living. This is a company that they're running. So,
the farm.
Yeah, as a kid, that was just, I woke up, there were animals, we did chores, and that was a lifestyle. It took me forever to understand. It's like, oh, they're actually running a business.
There's revenue and there's expenses.
The expenses and there's all this stuff. And it took me forever to comprehend that. And I've done me and my business partner, we've done a couple episodes where we just talk about how that is actually a business. And how there's so much similarities between what people think is a business and what farming is. So, yeah,
interesting. I suppose that's to a point. I suppose depending upon the size of the farm, it's somewhat of a owned job, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because the bigger you get, the more you almost start having your divisions like you would in a major company. Mm-hmm. And you have your different revenue streams. You have the crops in the fall, and you have the animals that you're, selling to other breeders or to feeder operations. Then you have the ones that are being sold for butchering, to feed the grocery chains, all that stuff. So you have all these different revenue streams coming in, just like a major business does. That you synchronize across the year on, hey, here's when I need this. So I got to plant so much grain here, so I have feed for the winter for X number ahead. And there's this whole big strategy piece that is, when you start looking, it's like, wow, this is actually really complicated. It's not just
Yeah.
going out and planting stuff and putting some cows in a field.
Sure.
It's more in depth. So
Wait for stuff to grow, right?
yeah, it's like I put some seeds out. I just gotta wait for it to grow, and I'm going to be raking in all this money. Yeah, no, that's not how this works.
Funny. So how did you end up with starting Time on Target?
So I was doing the sales thing. I got hooked up with this networking organization, and I joined one of their chapters. I became president of the chapter like in a couple months, and then I came onto their regional team, supporting other chapters in the area, and I discovered I was really good at launching groups for them. And so I started launching other chapters, and I was launching 20 plus chapters a year, and I was really good. And they were launching really strong. Yeah. I had taken this part-time thing that was supposed to be designed, to help me to promote my business and generate more referrals for me into an actual another job.
All right.
A full-time gig. So that was my foray into being a independent person without a base salary, was launching groups for this networking organization. But I'd go to all these different conferences for the directors, a national conference, international conference, and everyone would start hearing about how I was doing, that I had launched 20 plus chapters the previous year, and had, I was getting awards for large launches. And so then the other executive directors, the other franchise holders started coming up and saying, hey, can you come teach my team how to launch chapters? I'm like, yeah, I totally love to come to Houston or Miami or, wherever it is. Like, yeah, for sure. I'll totally do that. They're like, yeah, we'll pay for your airfare and hotel. I'm like, really? Sweet. That's cool. And they're like, yeah, and we'll give you like $350, $400. Like, and you want to pay me? Huh. All right. So that's how I launched Time on Target originally, was because I needed a place to get paid. So all these people are like, wanting to give me money to come train their people. I'm like, awesome. Yeah, let me set up a tax ID and a bank account and a company. So we made Time on Target. And so it launched as a training company.
And when, what's the timeline for this?
2010.
Okay. All right.
And
so then all these the franchise people and the I guess the people trying to grow their groups and their memberships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I was going to go.
And was that it, or did you have to go there repeatedly?
Oh, I would go there and I train them and do an in-person stuff. So I'd usually be there a couple of days, and we do training. I teach them my process, and we'd go out and have fun, and then we do coaching calls with them on a regular basis to help them and answer questions and do stuff like that. But yeah, I just rotated around. But then I also started speaking at conferences and other events. Organizations would pay me to come in and speak to them. I did like the Project Management Institute. I came in and taught social media, of all things, back in 2010, when everyone was still trying to figure out how you use that for business, and it was still relatively new. I did that. I spoke at chambers, different conferences. And then businesses would start hiring me then too, to come in and teach their teams how to do sales and networking. Which is awesome.
How did you initially get your name out there beyond just a networking group?
Networking. I started asking for, when I started doing the speaking thing where people were paying me, I started to say, hey, I want introductions to event planners. I want introductions to organizations that are looking for speakers to come in. I spoke at Rotaries.
All right.
They're always looking for people to speak. And then in Minneapolis, there's like 40 of them. So, you can rotate through there and over the course of a year. So I started doing that to just get exposed. And then, my friends and family started figuring out what I was doing. And my cousin's like, hey, would you come do a thing at Project Management Institute in South Dakota? I'm like, sure. Do they pay? Because I'm not traveling for free. Right. So it just went like that. And it was really cool. And then that's when I deployed in 2011, and everything stopped.
So this is just kind of side tangent in regards to the deployment. How much notice are you given?
Well, that one was your normal one, because we were given notice, and then they changed the date, and then we gave a new notice. But for that one, we had about a year.
Okay, so you have enough time to put ducks
Yeah.
in a row, kind of thing.
Yeah, it wasn't like, hey, yeah, you're leaving in a week where you have to
Okay,
do all that
oh,
type of
thanks.
stuff.
Hope your bags are packed because the plane's outside, right?
Yeah, I did have one of those calls though, where one of the units is like, hey, we're deploying this spring and we'd love to have you go. And I'm like, cool. They're like, but can you leave for your school? I had just gotten commission there. Can you leave for your school Monday so that you're done and you can join us on the deployment? I'm like, that's in 2 days. They called me on a Friday afternoon. I'm like, I have a job. This was when I was still employed by a company. I'm like, I can't walk into them today and say, yeah, I'm going to an Army school Monday.
Sure.
I'm like, really? How is that going to go over? So they're like, well, yeah, we kind of figured that's what you were going to say, but we had to ask. I'm like, yeah, got it. But yeah, so I have had that call. It's like, hey, can you go do this on Monday? No. But normally, if for a major deployment, a combat deployment, you have time.
Gotcha. Okay.
You have a year because they got to go through and figure out who actually is going and do all that stuff. It's not like they don't just like grab you and shove you on a plane.
The other thing is, did you ever leave the networking group?
Yep.
I guess sales thing, or eventually you had to build time on target?
Well, yeah, and when I came back, that's when we did the big refocus of what time on target was, because I realized, I don't want to do the speaking thing because that's just literally a cool job, and it's not actually something that I can scale.
Sure.
So we did the big money. Yeah, we need to figure out how I can build a company that if I do deploy again, I can still have operating and have someone come in to run it while I'm gone, and then I can come back to a functioning company, because I didn't want to rebuild from scratch every 4 to 5 years. And that's kind of what the deployment cycle was at that point, because we were right in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan and everything was going. So that's when we did the shift to the consulting. And when I came back, I had pushed all my stuff from the networking organization. Someone else got that, and they didn't really want to give it up when I was back. So, I never really got back into the same fold with him. So I was with them a few more years, but then I left. And when I left, I was like, sweet, I don't want to be the networking guy, because the networking guy is usually the person who can't sell and doesn't have any other skills. So I'm going to teach you how to network. So I focus on building time on target. And then I met my current business partner. He came on as a client first, Donnie, and we met on Facebook. He posted in a Facebook group where I was doing prospecting that he had broken his MailChimp and didn't know how to fix it. So all the other salespeople in that group were doing the normal, hey, let's jump on a Zoom call. We're a certified MailChimp partner. We can do that for you. I literally answered his question, said, here's all the things you need to check. And he's like, can we jump on Zoom? And so then we chatted. I told him everything he needed to know to fix his stuff. I didn't want him as a client at the time because it wasn't my focus. I didn't do a lot of coaches and consultant work then. But then 4 months later, he broke it again and messaged me again. It's like, all right, I just need to hire you, because otherwise I'm going to keep breaking this and I shouldn't be messing with my email. So then we started working together. And then in March of 2020, we became business partners and launched a networking organization.
In March of 2020. Perfect timing.
Well, and we did it on purpose.
All right.
So the following fall, Donnie used to do these Friday night happy hour things on Facebook with the Facebook group. He'd come on, he'd have a drink, and people would just chat, and he'd tell what's going on and ask questions and do coaching and all that stuff. Someone said, hey, you should come speak. I'm doing a event for the recycling industry, and you should come down and speak at it on sales. He's like, sure, awesome. Other people were like, oh, that'd be cool. Let's have a bunch of people go down. We can watch, and we can have a Success Champions meetup. Also cool. And then someone else said, well, why don't we just do our own Success Champions event? And then we all just go that, and we get, and Donnie teaches us instead of us going to someone else's event. So we at that point we affectionately termed it DonnieCon, and we started planning an event for the next April. So this was in fall of 2019. We were having an event in April of 2020. We had 22 speakers lined up. We had 150 people flying in from all over the country to attend this thing. And then Donnie's at the hotel doing like the final big planning meeting with them in March, when literally he was in the office when they got called from the city saying that they couldn't hold any more live events because the lockdown was starting. So, we have this big event in a month after we have our little freak out about what are we going to do? We're like, well, what are our members going to do? What are all our clients going to do? All these small businesses who can't now be out interacting and can't be out prospecting and doing their normal networking stuff. So he messaged me one morning at like 4 a.m. and said, hey, we should start a virtual networking organization. And a week later, we launched our first group. And now we have 50 plus chapters around North America. And we're getting ready to launch the Philippines and in talks with 3 countries in Europe to launch Success Champion networking groups. And neither of us wanted to be the networking guy. So here we are. We're now networking guys again.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and it was just, hey, how do we help businesses? And that was really the big focus when we launched this, because neither of us wanted to do it because we had such a bad taste in our mouth from networking in general, that our big focus, like, all right, so how do we fix it? And, thank you to Donnie's wife, Elizabeth, because he was hemming and hawing about it. And she's like, well, then fix everything you don't like. Right. Well, duh, why didn't we think of that? So, we changed the focus from give so you get to give because it's the right thing to do and help the people because helping is what you should be doing, and really designed it around so that it's more of this big mastermind meeting.
Okay.
Where people come and they're actually engaging with all the other members. You're not just sitting in a room listening to other people talk and then you leave. You're actually talking about what's going on in your business, what's going on in theirs. You're giving feedback. You're actually engaging in relationship building throughout the meeting. It's not just show up in a room and listen to someone else talk. It's like, no, you actually have to contribute.
Gotcha.
And we've limited the size. So there's only 30 people in a group. So, none of these mega groups where you're never actually going to meet and know all the people. You actually have the opportunity to know everyone in your group. And it's been awesome. Cool. Yeah, it took off. People came in and we started making little changes to how we did the meetings based on feedback. We added in a bunch of different meeting types. So it's not the same meeting every week. It's literally a different format. You rotate it every week throughout the month. So now there's some variety. You don't get bored with your meeting. Always new things to talk about. And it's just people are like, I want one of these. Can I join? I'm like, you're in Minnesota. This chapter is in Florida. So then we launch one in Minnesota, and then we launch one in Cleveland. And, we're now in probably 25 states.
Oh, wow. All right.
And 3 provinces in Canada.
Very cool.
So, yeah, it was something we never wanted to do, but it was a pivot that we needed to do to support our clients.
All right. So I guess we still have a little bit of time, but we're running out, but I want to get to the whole, what is time on target thing, right? That's so funny.
This is how my interviews normally go. It's like, oh, let's talk about this. I'm like, sweet. All right, cool. Let's go.
Oh, but I guess it's interesting because the entrepreneurial mind, right? It's not like I have one idea. I'm going to start this one business, move on with my life. Like, that's not exactly how it works when you're an entrepreneur. You're like, I have 5 billion ideas. I'm going to work on 5.
Donnie and I at one point had 6 companies under the Success Champion brand.
Oh, wow.
Doing different things. We had the summit and events. We had a magazine for about a year and a half that we did publish quarterly. Success Champions magazine was all on business development and growth. And that was fun, but neither of us wanted to run a magazine. And so we're like, until we find someone who can do that, that's gone. We had all these different things we were doing, and then the networking stuff hit. And we're like, oh, this is it. This is the focus. Now everything else is how do we support the growth of this and provide value to our members here with all these other stuff. So yeah, it's and that's a lot of it, I think, for entrepreneurs is trying stuff and not being afraid. Most people are afraid to fail.
Right.
And they're like, well, what happens if it fails? Like, who cares? Are you going to learn something from it? Yes. Right. Well, then you didn't fail. You learned stuff. And that's what failing in business is about, is going out and trying things and breaking shit so that you learn from it and you can keep evolving and getting better. And, that's our motto, go break shit. That's literally one of our core values within the organization, is if you're not breaking stuff, you're not getting better and you're not growing as a business.
Right. chalk it up to experience and move on, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to learn something and you're going to be able to say, all right, well, that's this part worked. This part didn't. Here's how we fix this part. Now it's an even better process, and people are happy with it. So, and we've had some doozies. We've made some changes in the organization that literally within 24 hours, our phones were lighting up because people were mad. We're like, no, all right, I guess we're rolling that back right away.
Is this new Coke? What is this?
Yeah, exactly. We had our new Coke moment.
All right, got it. So tell me about the automation portion of Time on Target.
So that I'm that introvert high C person. I love the technology stuff and I love working with telecom and understanding how the things work. So I loved working with the CRM systems and the email stuff and figuring out how to integrate that effectively into a sales process. So it actually helps the salesperson do their job better. Because a lot of people are willing to come into a business and coach sales and tell you here's how you should sell and here's what you should say and all that stuff. Well, I love the sales enablement side. I love being able to come in and looking at the process or developing a process and saying, all right, so here's how we're going to make it easy for your salespeople. Here's how we're going to free up time for them. And that's really what marketing automation attached to the sales process is for. It's figuring out, how do we send out content at the right time in the process that accelerates the client's decision-making process.
Gotcha. So this is not eliminating Salesforce. This is supplementing or preparing?
Yep. It's supplementing. So we usually start with, all right, what's your process and how do we integrate email and automation to help you sell better so that you're closing more, you're getting faster close rates, all that type of stuff. Then we'll figure out, all right, so now how do we flood your pipeline? How do we get a ton more people in there? Most people want to do it the opposite way. They're like, oh, we need to get more sales, so we need more traffic. We need more leads. No, we need to increase your closing rate by 10%.
Okay.
What happens if you close more business? I make more money. All right, awesome. If we get you up 10% and now we start bringing more people in, you make even more money. So the automation is all about, understanding what content or what information a client needs at each step of the sales cycle. So there's always a specific question that your client's trying to get answered so that they can move to that next step. And so automation is about making sure we're getting that content to them at the right time. So a good example that I always like is roofing companies. So I was working with a roofing company, and the first meeting would always be where they come out and they do all the measurements and they talk about options for shingles and siding and windows and all that stuff. Well, in Minnesota, and I'm sure this is similar in other places around the country, whenever we have a big thunderstorm or a tornado, we are swamped with storm companies who literally come up from Alabama and Arkansas. They literally talk with the Southern drawl. So they knock on your door and like, you're not from here. And they're trying to sell roofs. But then once the roof is in, they disappear.
Right. The storm chasers. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So for our client, what we did is once they had that first meeting, we automated the follow-up email for them. So instead of the owners doing the manually typing, hey, it was great meeting you on Friday, blah, 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 we sent out an email to the client, and it was really phrased around the whole idea of, hey, we understand that it can be difficult to know who is scamming you and who isn't in the roofing industry. This is a big issue. We hate it as much as you do. So we put together this checklist for you, and it gives them the list of like a top 10 things they need to check on and they need to ask before hiring any roofing contractor. And it tells them where to check and how to get all the information. And it was designed because that is the biggest thing on that homeowner's mind at the time, was like, am I about to get scammed? Mm-hmm. Am I giving my money to someone who's going to disappear? We heard it with the stuff going on after the hurricane in Florida, people going out getting deposits for work and then disappearing and the work never getting done. Someone got arrested after making like $200,000 off of scams that way. Woo. Yeah. So that was a big piece. It was the content that they needed at that time so they could feel confident. The sales guy for that roofing company would then go back, do the pricing, give them the information, talk about that. And then there would be an automated piece after that was all testimonials from their area. And we had it set up to be able to auto-populate some information, send out the email. So now they were seeing people with addresses similar to theirs, and from their zip code, neighboring zip code, where now it's, that's social proof. It's awesome when you see a testimonial, but then you're like, oh, this is a company in New York. or it's an industry that's not even related to mine. So having that proof where it was people that were in the nearby area, it might be even be people they knew.
Mhm.
You know, they did have that one happen. It's like, oh, you did so and so's roof. I know them. And then it makes them easier. It's like, all right, so he's done work for other people I know in the area. He's not going to disappear. And it was all about what content we need to have and what information they needed to have to feel confident making a decision. That's what the automation is for. It's not to replace your sales team. It's to free up their time so they can work with more clients.
Gotcha. So it sounds like these are automations that are based after a potential client has contacted your client, essentially.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, so there's two different types of ways we do automation. There is the pre-sales automation, which is your traditional drip campaigns. You know, people opt in and you send them the endless emails. But then there's also the once the salesperson started working with that prospect, you know, how you engage with the client at that point is different. You know, once a salesperson started meeting with them, all the other drip campaigns should stop, literally be done.
Sure.
And
Because they're already in the pipeline.
Exactly.
Right, salesperson.
Now you need to be focusing on what is the right information to send to help that salesperson close the deal. Gotcha. So when we do that, we're looking at, all right, so how do we make the emails sound and feel like they're coming from the sales guy or the sales gal? You know, we get rid of, you know, marketing companies and marketing agencies and departments hate it when I tell them this. Like, we need to get rid of all your marketing verbiage. All of it, because now the salespeople are talking, and as much as you hate it, we don't say things the way you write them.
Right.
We'll start that way, and then we'll adjust it based on our personality and where we see the client start doing this, the head nod, up and down head nod. When we say stuff, we're like, all right, they get that. So then we use that. So we figure out really how do we write the same stuff, but how a salesperson would say it. So it sounds like it's coming from a person they talk to. It's got their signature at it. So we segment all the lists so that they're getting stuff. So if I'm working with a prospect, they get emails from Kevin and not from this James guy that they don't know, which confuses the process. Why is this James guy sending me emails when I'm working with Kevin? And we make it feel like they're getting just conversation and talk to the salesperson. They hit reply. The reply goes to the salesperson right away. So they get this, now have that interaction. We still do all the behavioral tracking for them. You know, what pages are they visiting on our website? What stuff are they interacting with? You know, are they downloading more content from us? But then we funnel all that to the salesperson. Hey, here's what your prospects have been doing. You know, James has clicked on the pricing page twice in the last week. You probably should follow up with them. So we let them know, hey, these are triggers you need to look for, is that require you to reach out and touch base with them. Gotcha. Even if you have stuff planned for the next week, you see them doing this, you need to do a quick follow-up call and just see what's going on. So it's all designed about helping the salesperson close the deal easier and faster. And if you're doing it right, you can actually have some impact on the amount of revenue that sale generates.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's harder. The easiest ones and ones I always focus on are closing rate and closing cycle time. Mm-hmm. But if you are doing the content right, you can help the salesperson push for that higher revenue and not have to do the discount at the end.
Nice. Okay.
So, and it's all based on giving them the right information where you're building the value and helping them understand the impact and not just the features and benefits.
Sure. Something where they value it more. It's like the whole nobody uses a coupon for LASIK kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like my cell phones. You know, instead of a $50 rate plan with free phones, I was doing $150 a month with a free phone. It was way more valuable for us, and we loved it because we got more revenue as a company. But for the client, they're like, yeah, because here it has more value. It's worth $150. I'm okay paying that because it's going to generate this. So that's what content is there to do when it's integrated into a sales process.
Gotcha. All right. And it sounds like this is a system specific to a CRM system, or are you able to work with, I
can work with different ones, but it takes longer because usually I will have, if it's, I can do HubSpot, I'm HubSpot certified. It takes me a while to remember where everything is when I haven't been in there for a while.
Where they moved it.
Yeah. Oh, you redesigned the interface. Now where is all the stuff?
Yeah.
I've yelled at my computer a couple times when I've had that
Ah,
happen.
you're not
But
alone there.
yeah, but that was one of my big evolutions with time on target, because when I started the consulting piece and was going through and figuring out, well, what we actually were selling, I wanted to be the good consultant and not push a product or a specific system. I wanted to help them choose the right one, choose the one that's best for them. Until I had the aha moment of like, Kevin, you're an idiot. You're giving away all this revenue because you're bringing in a third party to do all the integrations
Oh,
and build
gotcha.
out the systems that I could be doing, and become an expert in a couple that then I can tell the client, hey, this is the one you need because it does this, as opposed to, ooh, let's go through a search process and find a product for you. I could tell them, and I would have so I ended up having a couple that did different things and were for really different size clients. But we're really, the one we focus on for automation like this is called Entreport.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's a company out of Southern California. They're in Santa Barbara. Actually, I guess that's Northern California. But and it's really designed about process automation for businesses. So it has all the marketing cool stuff, but then you can automate a ton of other stuff too. So it can really become a one-stop shop for a business that wants to do different things.
Very
So,
cool.
and the reason we chose that one is because it allows for external activities from salespeople to be the trigger for the automation.
All right.
So most email systems are automated based on two things: either a time, wait 2 days, send this email, or wait till the prospect does this one thing.
So
So
click
it'll
on a
be,
link or
yep,
whatever.
clicks on a link, visits a page, and it sends out an email. So if you've ever, like, HubSpot's really great at those. You go visit a blog, and if you're in their contact list, about 10 minutes after you leave their site, you'll get an email from them with other blog articles you might want to read based on the one that you're on, which is cool. So that's normally how automation systems work. Entreport allows us to actually set up a task to be assigned to someone, just like you do in your CRM, and then wait for that task to be done. So I can assign a task to you as a salesperson, say, James, go have this initial meeting with prospect X. And then at the meeting, afterwards, you mark it complete with the outcome and whatever notes. And then that triggers the appropriate follow-on email.
All right.
So that's what we use, just because it allows a lot more flexibility to add in that human element and support the sales team, as opposed to, well, this piece usually takes about 3 days. So we're going to set the email for 4 and hoping everything flows right.
Gotcha. Yeah, the triggers. That's clever.
Yeah.
That's very clever.
Yeah, from the outside sales perspective, I'm like, yep, this is the one. This is totally the one we're using. I haven't found anyone else who does that yet.
All right.
So, but to be honest, I haven't really looked real closely for about a year. So someone may have caught up. I just haven't found it yet.
Funny. Interesting. You had something that I saw I just want to ask you about really quick before we take off. You mentioned that introverts can be the best salespeople.
Yes.
And I think you touched on it, but I'd love for you to expand.
Well, yeah, and it's because Donnie and I fight about this all the time, because he's an extrovert, he's a D, I'm a C. But it's really that we listen and we ask questions, and we don't want to be the center of the conversation. We don't want it to all be about us during that sales process. Whereas your D's and your I's, which are your traditional salespeople, they want the focus on them. They want to be the center of the conversation. And they're really, the D's are really focused on getting to that final yes. We're focused on the process, and we want to learn. And that was the part when I figured out that, all right, I got to sell like a C, I got to sell like an introvert. And what that really meant was key. And that's when I made that big shift on how I was selling the Nextel products, and figured out, oh, I need to ask lots of questions and dive in and then be able to have really cool conversations with people. And that makes it so much easier for us, because now we're not having to do that directed sales process where it's like, say this phrase, when they say this, you say this, which never works well for us. So it's really about our ability to listen, and actually at the same time that we're listening, be strategizing. I was about to say, you got to be strategizing with your client, think about, all right, so this is going on, well, and be able to come up with that really cool question that's a follow-up that gives you that piece of information, like, oh, now it all fits.
Gotcha. All right.
So like this morning, I was on with a client who MSP, an IT company out of Texas, and we were talking. He was looking at, he needed to grow his sales and revenue, and he made this comment that's like, well, I haven't actually been in front of a prospect for like 6 months. I'm like, whoa, hold on. All right. So that tells me I'm not selling you anything because you don't have any new revenue coming in. So we did this complete shift on, all right, so let's talk about that. And it turned into, all right, let's help you figure out how you do prospecting, and let's do coaching. And if I would have been just doing my normal sales guy thing, I would have been trying to get him to buy automation stuff from me. And he's not at that point.
Oh, interesting.
So I was able to think, all right, he is totally not at this revenue where he needs to be to actually buy what I want. How do I get him there? What do I do? How do I make sure he leaves this meeting thinking, wow, I got a ton of value from this sales guy?
Gotcha. Okay.
So he's joining one of our chapters now. We're going to, get him connected with some really cool people who can, we'll have potential referrals for him. And then we're going to get him in a mastermind where he can actually figure out his business.
All right.
And so he can start scaling and have revenue coming in and growing it on a monthly basis. So he can start doing the cool marketing and automation stuff he wants. But, it's that ability to, really think, oh, I can't just press forward with this one sale the way I want this one. Yes. It's like, all right, we're going to go down this road. All right. So how do I get him here? What's my roundabout way? And being able to come up with that plan and really start strategizing and provide a solution that fits the client and makes them excited to give you money. That's for me, when I do sales, at the end of the meeting, I want them to be saying, all right, so how do we start? If I don't have to ask.
That's a great question for a prospect to ask.
Yeah. If they're saying that, I did my job. If I have to ask them for the next steps, that means I didn't do something right previously.
Sure. Got it. How can people find you?
The best way to find me is you can go to my website, time-on-target.com, and connect with me through there. LinkedIn, Facebook, all my social links are there as well. Or if you want, I actually have a really cool free gift for all your listeners.
Sure. Yeah. You love free gifts, right?
Yeah, I'm all about free stuff. So if they text the words "sell smarter" to the phone number 612-429-4298, I'll actually send them a free guide on all the questions you need to ask to figure out how your buyers make purchasing decisions, and a guide on what content matches up to each step in the sales process.
I love it. Super cool. I appreciate that. Can you tell us that one more time? The phone number?
The phone number is 612-429-4298. And you want to text the words "sell smarter" to that number.
Awesome. Sell smarter, is that one word or 2 words?
2 words.
2 words. Okay. Just checking.
It is a good question to ask. So
fair. Super cool. Kevin, can you tell us the website one more time, please?
Yeah, it's www.time-on-target.com.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Kevin. You helped us out a lot, and I love the introverts are best at sales. It's cool. It's pretty cool.
Hey, thank you for having me on. It was a really cool conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, love it. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We're locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. If you're listening or watching this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, give us a big old thumbs up, subscribe, because you got to keep the algorithm happy. And of course, comment below, and of course, share it with your friends, introvert or extrovert. Regardless, they're all in sales, right? That's how it goes. My name is James Kademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country, on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Kevin Snow, the founder and CEO of Time on Target. Kevin, can you tell us that website one more time?
www.time-on-target.com.
I love it. Awesome. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night. The podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.